Grit Daily would like to welcome you to Monday Motivation.
Hey everyone, welcome to Monday Motivation Podcast. We've got a special guest today. His name is Daniel Hall. You may know him as the $1 Million Freelancer. Yes, he's made that much by working platforms and bringing freelancing quality and experience now to all of us through his new venture, which is called Working Den. It's designed to be a health and wellness solution, talking about everything from eye strain tips to ergonomic chairs. Hey, Daniel, welcome. How well equipped do you think that the workforce is? Maybe there's geographical differences, but with respect to working from home for an extended period, it seems everybody sort of had to get into okay, we're going to do this for a couple of months. But how well prepared do you think workers are now to sustain this for 6 more months, another year?
I think people are fine to sustain it for maybe another 6 months because, as I mentioned previously, I think a lot of the problems are slow burners. So you'll have the immediate problems such as burnout and loneliness and depression and stuff, which obviously are huge problems in themselves. But the other sort of factors with sort of aches and pains in your back and your shoulders and things like that, they are problems that appear over a certain period of time. So you being hunched over for a few days is not going to sort of hurt you. For a few months may not, but once you're in that hunched over position because your desk is not at the right height or your screen's not at the right height or you're not using an ergonomic chair, those sort of problems are long-term ones that after a year, 2 years, that's when you're really going to start feeling the pain, and that's when they'll sort of come out. The overworking and will obviously cause burnout, but along with that, if you're not taking breaks for your eyes, you'll be getting eye strain and you'll lose eyesight without even realizing that it's happening. Again, that's not something that happens overnight. It's something that happens over months and years. And other problems like putting on weight. Again, that's not something overnight you can put on stones, but if you're just sitting there doing nothing and you're not working out and not sort of taking breaks and not doing walks and stuff, that's something that sort of creeps up on you after sort of a few months and maybe a year or so. So I think in the short term, people think they have themselves set. So they're in a routine, they know what's going on now. So people, I would imagine, feel a lot less stress and a lot less unpredictability about the situation because they know their routine and how they go about work. But I think if they want to work from home long term, then they have to come up with solutions that solutions to the problems that sort of long-term problems. So they might have worked out that they can work a certain amount of hours, or they might start working and then take a lunch at a certain time, or they might do a home workout or whatever, but then they need to take that further and look at sort of the long-term considerations and like working from home as a whole, what the problems are and what the solutions are.
And even some of the advice and tips that you've given, such as, get up in the morning, shower, get dressed, and this whole notion of yoga pants, right? So you don't really notice the weight creeping on.
Yeah, no. Tell me about it. Before I started working from home, I was the skinniest guy in the world, and I was like a twig, and now I'm a twig with a big belly. So yeah, it's not the best look.
Well, it sounds like with your second child on the way, you'll be running around and running that belly off in no time.
Yeah, hopefully.
Switching gears a little bit from problems that related to working from home, let's talk about the awareness and campaigns or any efforts that you're trying to do here to let people know, because like you said, this whole work from home concept, people think they have it under control and sort of they're in a maintenance mode. They don't really know what they don't know. So how is it that people are going to find out about the potential long-term problems, the burnout, the weight gain, all of that stuff? Do you think that's going to take an organic effort that people are slowly going to find out about it? Or do you think that there has to be some proactive big campaign to say, hey, warning?
I think realistically it's going to be organically. I would love to say that, yes, Working Den's going to get out there and everyone's going to see it and people would learn. But in reality, I think most people are not going to see it. I think a lot of people are not sort of reading Fast Company or Thrive Global or whatever, like as a population. Maybe I think my Fast Company article got something like about 20,000 sort of reads or whatever. So for sort of mass sort of learning, I think it will be organically. I think people will just realise after a certain amount of time, oh God, like, look what's actually happened here. I need to find solutions, and then we'll go out and actively search for those solutions, opposed to being told what the problems are and then finding solutions. But I also think another problem with that is that people will, even if they are given the problems and the solutions, a lot of people will brush them off. So I know for myself, I've known for years about ergonomic chairs and ergonomic setup, and chose to totally ignore it because I thought, well, I'm not in pain, I've not got any problems, and I'm fine as I am. And then turns out I wasn't. So I think a lot of people will not actually take note of it until they actually encounter the problems themselves.
And now I've seen the, terrific response in just a few weeks. Working Den's Slack channel's already got about 600 users, and they're actively engaged with cross-representation from multiple business functions, including HR as well as workers. And like you said, there's always the pesky little spammers that somehow find their way there. And it's great that you're just shutting them down. But do you think that direct outreach to some of these human resources, international agencies and groups is worthwhile? Is that something you plan to do?
It is, yeah. So we've actually got a phone call booked tomorrow with Herman Miller, who are the biggest sort of workplace company in the world,
Yes.
who my colleague Bertie works for. So yeah, someone on their board is going to call up tomorrow and have a chat with us, and we're not too sure what they are going to say at the moment, but if they were prepared to promote it to all of their clients, then that's obviously going to get us a lot of attention and hopefully spread the message a lot sort of further. We've also got a member of staff who I've employed who is sort of reaching out to organisations and reaching out to sort of people in politicians and so on to try and get the message out that way. Then obviously I've got Bianca, who sort of put us in touch, trying to help me with the PR side of things. So yeah, I've got sort of quite a few different ways of sort of getting a message out at the moment. And the Slack channel itself, it's got quite a few prominent people in there and quite a few sort of HR leaders and so on. So hopefully if they pass on the word to their employees and then their employees tell their friends and so on, hopefully it'll grow that way as well.
Fantastic, because the Working Den has so much to offer. Like I was ecstatic to see it. As I said, it came at a good time for me where I was realizing, whoa, things aren't going the way that they should be going here. I got to switch directions. So I'm excited to hear that there'll be a terrific outreach, because I imagine the uptick will be significant. It's so good, such good stuff. And the song, how fun to have an advice song.
Yeah, copied an idea from, do you remember the song called Wear Sunscreen? From years ago. It was basically a song that had sort of advice over the top, and it's probably about 20 years old now, but that was just general life advice. And I thought, there's millions of videos going around, there's millions of articles going around, people are not going to take note if I just put up another article or if I just put up another video. So yeah, I sort of put the song together to try to get more reach. And sort of on the first day it was released, it got put on Irish radio, on the biggest sort of radio channel in Ireland, which was great. Other than that, it hasn't had much uptake yet.
Oh, how fun. All right, let's switch gears to the whole notion of freelancing, because of course you are recognized as the $1 million freelancer. Let's talk about some of the trends that you're seeing with respect to the usage of platforms. I'm seeing, as a platform user, the increased amount of clients who are coming on trying to do full-time recruitment away, as well as trying to force leakage off the platform because they're complaining about the egregious fees. What are you seeing, and what comments do you have on that?
Well, it's a sort of symbiotic relationship. So the more employers you get on the freelance sites, the more jobs are out there, the more jobs become available, and the more people get employed and sort of want to become freelancers and become freelancers sort of full time, and then it grows that way. So since I've become a freelancer, it's grown massively. When I first started freelancing in sort of Google Ads, there was probably about 10 people a day who would bid on the same jobs that I did. And at the time, the website I used, Upwork, was called Elance, and you could sort of see exactly who you were sort of being bid against. So that obviously helps, which you can't do now. But I could always see that I'd have sort of 10 competitors. Now, if you bid on a job, you're probably bidding against 50 people. So whilst that doesn't seem like a huge increase per job, if I'm only applying for sort of one job a day, because honestly, I get offered about 20 jobs a day, and I decide what ones I want to take on and what ones I don't. So if I'm only bidding for one a day and suddenly I'm against 50 people, then it does make a difference. But if you spread it across every single job, then there's obviously a lot more people out there. In terms of people leaving the sites for fees, I've had quite a few people, honestly, over the past few years that have asked me to do that. I don't personally do it just because it's against Upwork's terms of service. So I avoid doing that because I've got a reputation on the site, and the last thing I want to do is sort of they find out I get banned, and suddenly my biggest driver of clients is sort of affected that way. So I personally refuse to do that, but I've had a lot of people who try to do it, and I've worked with agencies who want to come off Upwork and so on, and people are not always confident using the freelance sites. And something I also found is some people are not even trusting of the reviews you have. So I had a guy last year and he was like, oh, I need to have a phone call. And typically I avoid phone calls because what I'll find is when people want a phone call to discuss a job, they typically become the people who want phone calls every day, every week, every month, so on. And for that reason, they waste more of my time. So if I could have just a guy who comes on, wants to award me a job straight away, I'm like, okay, great, this guy's going to be easy to work with. He's not going to waste my time. I know I'll get on with this guy. So I sort of tend to avoid the people that want phone calls. But this particular person was someone who approached me when I only just went back on Upwork, and he basically asked to speak to me because he wanted to make sure I was a real person. He said he just wants to make sure I was a real person at the end of the line doing the work, and not actually just sort of some made up person. So
all right, if I could just steal a couple of more minutes, Dan, would you be open to that?
Of course.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
So fantastic. So a couple of things related to that. I'm also like on Upwork and other platforms, and I honor the platform too, because I don't want to be banned. And that's what we were found. And then I like the security of being paid, because sometimes it happens a couple of times a year when I've had independent arrangements, I don't get paid. And then you're spending all this time trying to get money you're never going to get. And like, who has time to go to court and money to
of course.
So it's just, it's a lost cause. The other thing that I find I want to ask, because you have such a tremendous reputation, I find a lot of clients come on and they want to do the interview, but it's really, quote unquote, the brain pick. And that's why I try to keep it to 15 minutes, but clients are like, no, let's have an hour to get this going first. What are your thoughts on that and advice to people? Because of course, I know you have your $1 Million Freelancer book, which we want everybody to read, but what's your advice to people to push back on that to protect themselves from the brain pick?
Personally, as I mentioned a moment ago, I don't take on clients that want phone calls, just because I know from experience, and this sounds absolutely stupid because most people will be like, what? Because I know in sort of the lead generation game, people want people on a phone because they think they can sell to them, they can upsell, they can sort of lock in a deal by speaking to someone. I'm the complete opposite, because I can always see someone who's going to be a troublesome client. Typically, if someone wants to call, as I mentioned earlier, they will want to call weekly or monthly, and I know it might only be an hour a month, but that 1 hour a month is an hour a month I could be doing something else. So I try to avoid anyone who sort of has calls.
The last thing, just to wrap up here, again, conscious of your time and grateful for this. So I've got this theory that I've been talking to freelancers with, like I said, the fallacy of freelancing. Now, recognizing that you are a seasoned freelancer, and literally you've learned the hard way, right? And you've written about it and shared all of your insights and tips, which is on my Kindle reading list for this weekend. It's not Saturday yet, so I can't get there.
Yeah.
But that said, so all of that's there, but there's so many people now that have entered the freelancing universe as a result of COVID displacement, sort of, and whatnot. They may be unaware of your book, haven't read the tips. In my experience, and in the other experience of the freelancers I'm talking to, they're seeing this disconnect with the clients, right? The clients are used to having somebody full-time, beck and call, let's go. And maybe it's a geographical, cultural difference, but the clients like have that expectation, and then you as a freelancer are expected to do that. And when you start pushing back and say, no, I'm time blocking, and Tuesday afternoon is client B's time, not your time, it doesn't go over well, at least here in the US. And it's creating a lot of frustration and consternation on the clients that I talk to, not just who are clients of mine, but just clients in general, and for the freelancers that I know, myself included. Can you comment on this theory of the fallacy of freelancing? Is it bunk? Where is it real? Where are the pitfalls?
So there's quite a few different sort of ideas in around that. so if I sort of pick them out one by one, so I think it will depend on a job for starters. So I've had jobs on Upwork where I will say, okay, well, I need something done for me. I'll just put up a job. I'll say, look, I need something done by tomorrow, and I'm not hiring someone who I've hired previously. I just need whoever's available to do it in the next sort of 24 hours, and that job's up there. And obviously, if that job's not done in that 24-hour period, then I'm not going to be happy because that's what I wanted. So I put it up on the condition that it's going to be done soon because it's something urgent. So I think you have sort of that way of looking at things. If there's an urgent job and you've been hired for an urgent job and you don't get an urgent job done straight away, then that obviously causes problems. But then in general, most of my clients, I have clients in Australia, America, Canada, New Zealand. And what I used to do when I first started freelancing was I would make sure I was up at 5 a.m. in the morning, sometimes 4 o'clock in the morning, just because I knew I wanted to be up to speak to the Australian clients I had during their working day, and sort of if they've got any problems, still be around for a few hours while they're still working, and get those problems sorted, and then that's that done. And then I'd work through a day, I'd have all my British clients, I'd start having their emails, and then come 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my American clients would start emailing me. So it was a continuous process, and I would still be on the computer at 10 o'clock at night. And this is sort of one of the things I mentioned about burnout and stuff, and I was working every hour I go in, and I was doing this sort of 7 days a week. And I did think I thought, look, well, if I'm not around to reply to people, they'll be getting really upset, and I'll lose them as a client and so on. And then over time, I slowly started getting up at 6 o'clock and getting up at 7 o'clock, and now I get up at 8 o'clock. So my Australian clients who I was getting up early for and sort of replying to straight away, I'm now sort of replying at 8 o'clock when it's sort of near the end of their day, and they don't really, no one's moaned or complained. I haven't lost any clients due to that. And my American clients, if I sort of see an email come through when I'm on a computer, still say I'm on the computer at 8 o'clock at night and an email comes through, if I feel too tired to reply, I'll just reply the next day. And I've not lost any clients from that. I've not had sort of any negative response to that. So I think the main point for a lot of clients is, as long as you're going to reply and what you reply is what they want to hear. So not in the sense of sort of just saying something to make someone happy, but if someone's emailing me because they want to know X, Y, and Z and what's happening, if I give them an update that I spent an hour and a half on the next day, and it's a great update and it answers all the questions they had and it answers any questions they might have had going forward, then that was worth waiting for. Whereas if I'm available 24/7 and I send them a 2-line answer and it's not what they wanted, then that's obviously going to make someone more unhappy than it would sort of waiting a day. So yeah, the fallacy of sort of having to be around 24/7, I found is not relevant. People are just happy if someone wants me to get them 100 leads in a month and I'm getting them 110 leads in a month, then they're going to be happy regardless of if I reply straight away, regardless of if I work only Mondays, regardless of if I don't sort of work all weekend. It's sort of, yeah, people just care about what they're getting from it. So in 1 hour, it doesn't matter if I'm paying you the same money that someone's doing it in 20 hours, as long as you are getting the performance I expect. And I think that's what a lot of companies are coming to realise. So yeah, it depends on the person. But again, as I sort of mentioned in my call yesterday, or my email yesterday, sorry, it's a lot down to client selection as well, because you can tell if a client's going to be sort of a pain in the bum. I had a potential client message me on Upwork 2 or 3 weeks ago, and this person wasn't the actual founder of the company, but the founder of the company is incredibly famous, and he sort of made a point of, look, we're founded by this guy, you'll get to work with this guy, it'll really help your credibility, blah, 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 blah. That was like, we want you to do 2 jobs for us. We need this one done by Monday, this one done by Tuesday. And straight away, I didn't even respond. I just turned the job down, because if that's how they expect to start the working relationship, why would the working relationship ever be any different? So straight away, by sort of saying no, I'm not putting myself in a position where I do have to work with someone like that. And there are obviously clients out there that expect you to be around 24/7. But if you are good at choosing your clients and you are choosing people who seem decent people, who you've read their reviews, have not got bad reviews for expecting the world, then you're just making your own life a lot easier.
And just last thing related to that is really the sort of the nugget around this, the idea of enlightenment. that you as the freelancer have had enough experience to recognize sort of the pitfalls, the warning signs, and brace yourself against them, whereas some of the clients really haven't yet, I guess, been enlightened enough to realize what a successful relationship with a freelancer looks like. Do you think we're still at the early stage of that enlightenment period, or where do you think we are?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. So, in my perspective, sort of pretty early on, I was saying no to a lot of people because I didn't want to work with them. So that's something I think that just comes naturally. I think you can just spot a bad person naturally anyway. But in terms of sort of spotting now, yeah, I'm obviously better at it. If you've been freelancing for a while, you'll obviously be able to spot the signs a lot better. But if a lot of people are now starting freelancing again, they're going to come up against these people who are not good clients. You're going to get a lot of clients coming on to the freelancing sites or just hiring freelancers in general who are not used to doing that, who are not used to asking the right questions, who are not used to the way that you do hire these in sort of hire freelancers in opposed to a traditional sense. So yeah, I think there's a lot of learning from both angles, and I'm not gonna say that I know everything. I've obviously been doing it a long time and I've been very successful, but you can obviously continue to learn in everything you do. But I think there should be something out there, whether it becomes law, whether it becomes a set of guidelines that every person on a website such as Upwork has to abide by. I think that is the future. I think there should be a process out there as well where, be it an insurance company or be it Upwork itself or even a sort of regional government, where they for 2 weeks of the year will pay for your wages or not pay for your wages, but they will provide you with an alternative. So if you go on vacation for 2 weeks or vacation for a week, you have someone there who can take on your work whilst you're away, and you don't lose those clients. So you have contracts in place. You know that, okay, when I'm away for this week, if anything happens that week, I'm secure. I don't have to work whilst I'm away. Because going back to your fallacy question, whilst you don't have to be there 24/7, someone's going to expect a reply within a week, or if a bit of work's urgent, it doesn't matter if you're on holiday. My clients expect it to be done. So the problem for me as a freelancer the whole time has been finding a solution whilst I'm away on vacation. And honestly, every vacation I've had, I've ended up working, whether it's, I don't know, an hour a day or whether it's 4 hours on one day and then nothing the next day. But yeah, I do think in the long term, there needs to be a solution for when people go on vacations.
If they go, I mean, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
I feel like I've ruined every family vacation. And same thing, I'll get up at 4 a.m. while everybody sleeps till 8 or 9. So at least I've got 4 or 5 hours of work in to keep my clients going. Then I'm like wrecked the rest of the day because we'll be up to midnight, 1 a.m. It's.
And yeah, my sort of fiance doesn't appreciate me working when we're away. So it'll always be, well, you nearly finished it. And I'll be like, I've just got another email and whatever. So I went to Italy in July, and I wouldn't do any work until the evening. So we'd come in maybe 10 p.m. and then I'd stay up until sort of 12 p.m. just doing work. So yeah, it was all 12 a.m. But so yeah, but it's not the best. I think that's one problem that certainly has to be sorted out going forward if it is to become something that's taken on by everyone. Because whilst I understand the way it works, for a lot of people, they won't be able to do that. And a lot of people will believe, well, I've worked hard all year for these 2 weeks, so why am I working on those 2 weeks? And yes, it's certainly something that needs a solution.
Absolutely. That's where I said I want to present this thesis of the fallacy of freelancing. And that's exactly where it is. We need guidelines. People need to be educated, and so that there's a deeper contract to understand sort of the deliverables and the support. Guess what? Once in a while, I want to take a day off, or once in a while, client B has an urgent need and your stuff gets parked for a day.
Yeah.
There should be these sorts of rules. It's like, hey, if you want the same thing, you got to be flexible because the other client's going to need this someday. Yeah, it's fun times. But Daniel, I don't want to keep you any longer. I could talk to you forever, and I can't wait to dig into your book. But I do want to respect your time. And
I'm just going to say I'm happy to answer any more questions you might have now.
Well, and so okay, if we can take a few more minutes, so then why not?
Yeah.
So focus on mental health. I mean, you've looked in the United States. Anxiety medications and depression medications, I don't know what the split is for each, but they've risen by 45% since March. I mean, and the US already consumes like more pills than any other country on a given day, and every other country sort of in the world in a year. But this is awful. So Why, with all of these sort of emphasis on mental health, and then of course on Saturday that just passed was International Mental Health Awareness Day, why aren't there more committee efforts, and or maybe there are, I guess this is a question, seeking people like you out to get that perspective and say, hey, what do we need to do here? What do we need to change?
Two answers here. I think in the current stage we're in, I think it's obviously what they assume to be much bigger problems with COVID. So I think it's sort of put on the back burner, and if the world continues to work from home, and I think that's when they'll start looking into it. I know in Ireland and Germany they've been looking into to do with home working, and they've sort of rushed those through. But most other countries obviously not even sure what they're doing with COVID, so they've sort of put this on sort of to something that can get looked at in the future. In general, over the past few years, I've written letter after letter after letter to my government and just don't receive replies. I actually sent one about 2 weeks ago and have yet to receive a reply. And actually, the MP was called Gillian Keegan, and I sent her sort of an Instagram. I've sent her a message on Instagram. I sent her a email to her office. I sent a message on Facebook. I sent a presentation to her, but I've yet to hear back from any of them. So it's something I've been pushing for years, because there is a lot of problems that do have easy solutions. But I think governments pre-COVID for freelancing and people working from home were not a big enough section of the society to waste their time on. So, and it's not me that believes it's a waste of time, but I think in their eyes, I think that would be the case. So now that there are more people working from home, and now that COVID will push more people into freelancing, I think that suddenly governments will wake up and think, okay, well, we've now got a good amount of the population who are in these situations. We do need to look at solutions, and I think those will come maybe in the next 2 or 3 years. But up until now, I think it's just been governments lazily sort of pushing us aside and believing that there's not enough for us to sort of win them votes. So well, hopefully that will changes.
Well, I think so. I mean, you look at, you said you're a proficient user on Upwork, our annual State of the Freelancer report, where
Yeah.
within the US, 57% of people are now freelancing, that there's at least the level of a side gig. Now, I don't know, and this is what I'd be curious, what portion of the population has gone full time. I think we're going to start to see that inversion where what used to be a side gig is slowly becoming sort of the main gig, as people have been displaced from at least traditional jobs in this COVID era, like TBD if they ever go back, right?
Yeah, of course. I was just going to say, I'm not sure if you see yesterday, Dropbox have announced that going forward, all of their staff's going to be working from home, but they are still going to have an office, but it's not going to be virtual working, or hybrid working. So what they're going to do is they're going to make their offices, take all the chairs and desks away, and make it a place where people can come and meet with each other, talk with each other, collaborate with each other, but not actually do any work. They expect all work to be done at home. But the office is going to become a place where ideas are sort of found, where people sort of spend time, become friends with each other, and sort of build friendships and stuff. But it's not actually there to do any work. So that's the solution that they found going forward.
Years ago, just as a little sidebar, I worked for Johnson Controls, and we worked with a bunch of futurists and office planning, organizational management sorts of folks. And for one of our prominent clients that I can't name, but they wanted to have a progressive space. And that's basically what they did. They created this very large, beautiful atrium, fish swimming in the floor, all cafes and things, just to really try to drive that level of collaboration. So, I guess the future's here, right?
Yeah, it is.
And for sure, last question, because I'm feeling really badly. I've taken up so much
Yeah.
time, but loving this. Now, it's not fair to stereotype and all of that. And of course, there's a bell curve with everything. But given the years of experience that you've had and the clients that you've been able to work with and for around the world, do you see any cultural differences? Do some cultures or people from certain geographies, are they, sort of better clients, or are they worse clients, or they have unrealistic expectations, more so from one geography than the other? Any sort of commentary, like let's get the dirt from country to country.
For me, my English clients are best in terms of paying, because they just seem to pay me with no problems, and I don't ever need to sort of chase my sort of English clients. My Australian clients, they're amazing people, but I've had problems with a few of them, which I don't really want to get him in trouble. But
No,
yes,
not telling tales that way, just generalities.
yeah, no. So generally, sort of Australian people have been more fly by night, so they will promise you the world and then disappear, or something will happen to them and they're not around anymore. So Australian people are amazing. They're some of my best clients, but yeah, they have tended to be the ones that you'll have a lot of business with, and then suddenly you'll lose it without. American clients have typically been my worst payers, not been paid, or if I'm sort of chasing on payments, it's typically the American clients. And I say that as someone who's half American, by the way. The rest of the clients, it's sort of, I've only had sort of maybe 2 or 3 in each country other than sort of those main 3 countries. So it'd be hard to generalize when you're talking about 3 people, but they're sort of the main differences between those 3 countries.
Oh, that's just fun. Like I said, I had to ask because now I'm seeing some of the same things, and the bulk of my clients, like in the US, it's very different with respect to boundary setting and expectations, where the US, and Bianca and I were talking about this earlier, the US really embraces and applauds busy culture, right? And whereas I see in Europe and even in Canada, that where I'm from, they have a much better sense of balance and a respect. It's like, oh, you need to go have dinner with your family, versus the US is like, it's only 11 p.m. Like, why aren't you still working?
Yeah. Something that would be good to listen to if you've got time is I did a podcast about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and I sort of tell some good stories in that one. So if you've got some free time, anytime, listen to that. So I'll send that over across as well.
Perfect. I was gonna say, I was just nodding to Bianca. I was giving her like the pen sign saying, can you please send me that link? I was doing telepathy. Were you getting it? Great. Well, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day, and good luck with Herman Miller tomorrow. Like, the world needs you, Daniel. They need working Den. So go forth.
All right. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
Follow us at Grit Daily on social media and listen to all of our podcasts, including Like a Boss on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, or your favorite platform. For special guest submissions, email Loralyn at gritdaily.com.